Matt Johnson came by the studio the other day. He was a big Toronto dude, and he gave a manic and lucid talk about art. And one of the things he said, which really stuck with me, was the purpose of making art is not to make perfect art, but it is to craft yourself into the perfect vessel for art to move through. I was like, wow, what a great sentence. I'm going to steal that one. And so I did. The idea that you're trying to make perfect art is a real brainworm because you're not going to make perfect art ever, even when you craft yourself into the perfect vessel for art to move through, because art probably shouldn't be perfect. You know, the flaws that are a part of the art make the art what it is. You'll notice this as you actually create things, the limitations that are put on the art that you work within as you're making art become part of the art. And then people actually like that. So stuff that you're working on, you're like, this is a flaw, this is a limitation, this sucks. I mean, maybe, but it's also very possible that people will look back on that, or that you'll look back on that after you put it out 2 months from now, a year from now, whatever, and realize that those flaws didn't matter as much as you thought they did, or that they're actually a part of the art in a really deep way that you wouldn't want to get rid of even if you could. So one of my favorite artists right now is this guy that just yells into his mic over some stolen instrumentals and just makes up the lyrics as he goes. He's a rapper. He's probably my favorite rapper now of all time. He's got 100 subscribers. I can't tell you what his name is, though, because he's way too vulgar. And I don't want to be associated with him, but it's genius. It's really good stuff. And like, you can just tell he's like, I blew up my barn. I killed the cat that was stealing my yarn. I love it. I find it really funny. And I actually find it very listenable. However, it's like objectively bad. Like there's no mixing. You can hear the mic popping. Like quality wise, it's bad. However, I because of the limitations that he put onto himself, I can tell this is like a 17-year-old kid yelling into his iPhone mic. I really like it. I can see the artist in the flaws, in the faults that is being created, and that's why he's my favorite rapper right now. And it's also why. If he had waited until he became really good at being a rapper or at mixing his songs or whatever, I probably wouldn't have ever found out about him. If he had never put out his really bad stuff, I probably wouldn't care about him because he'd just be making stuff that I've heard plenty of well-mixed songs. I've heard plenty of well-written songs. They don't stick in my head quite as much as this guy does because he's just creating stuff every day. Every day he makes a new song and it's just him yelling over some stolen instrumental, and it's really good, and it builds up this kind of artistic continuity for him of I can look back and see, wow, he's actually getting better, which is crazy. So now when he gets really good at making songs, I'll be here for it. But I'm only here for it because I was here for his really experimental weird rap that he didn't even write probably before he started speaking. So that's kind of what I'm getting at, is when you are really wrapped up in a project and all you're seeing is the faults and the flaws, by getting it out, by publishing it, by making it imperfect and just allowing it to be imperfect, you will probably find that looking back on it a month from now or 2 months from now or even a year from now or however long it takes for you to reset your mind and get some distance from the project, you'll look back on it and you'll be like, wow, this was not as bad as I thought it was. Or you'll realize the flaws that you thought were bad were actually integral parts of the art that needed to be there. So yeah, I would say keep that in mind. If you're on a project right now and the faults seem insurmountable and really tough to get over, then I would say think about yourself in the future. And I know that that's, it might not help you at all because you're not in the future yet. But it's something that you will learn if you've created anything in the past. This is why it's important to finish things. Like if you've made anything in the past and you were really caught up on the flaws, look back on that stuff. You'll realize the flaws were not as big of a deal as you thought they were, or that they were actually important to the art. The limitations informed the art and made the art what it was. Humans are not perfect creatures. Humans will never be perfect creatures. You can get the robot to probably make you a perfect piece of art in like a year. That's not going to change. But we can fuck up. We can be limited. We can be dirty and filthy and ugly and imperfect. And that's all we need to be. That's all we need to be. Because when I'm looking at art, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for connection. And sometimes I feel like I really like an artist because I can feel the artist within the art that they've produced. here's another example. I have a friend who's really into music. I don't understand much about mixing or mastering or anything, but he tells me a lot about mixing. And one of his favorite artists, the mixing becomes really shitty when the drop hits, because you can tell that the artist doesn't care about mixing it perfectly at that point. He's so into the drop that he's just like, fuck it. I'm not going to mix this properly. And the mixing's kind of like not great. But it's better that it's not great, because you can tell that it just communicates something through that art. It communicates that the guy stopped caring about mixing in that moment. And it's like he's so into the drop because he finds the drop so good that you now want to feel that the drop is good enough to like not pay attention to the mixing. It adds to the experience that it is not perfect. Meanwhile, I have another friend who kind of spends a lot of time mixing and makes the mixing really, really perfect. And you can kind of tell something's off here. Why did he spend this long on? Why did he spend 100 hours mixing this? Something's weird about this. And then that's actually what gets communicated when you think, okay, I'm making a perfect piece of art here. I'm making it perfect. Then it actually says more about you that you tried to make it perfect. Like it says like, why did you spend 100 hours on the mixing for this when it just communicates that you really want to be perceived as perfect, no matter what we do. And I think this is kind of how I find AI most interesting is how human beings interact with it and what it says about the humans interacting with the robots. Like, I think when someone makes an AI song and they think it's really good and it's like it's like fine, but they think it's like incredible. Wow, look at this. So the robot did this. It always says more about the human being who is putting the effort into the robot than the robot itself. Like, I think that's a much more interesting lens of analysis to look at those things through. So you're not going to make perfect stuff. Perfectionism is totally missing the point about making art. And the actual point of making art is to make enough art to craft yourself into something that art can move through kind of freely with minimal friction and resistance. And that will never even happen. That'll never even happen. You will never get there, but you're moving there. You're moving closer towards that. The more you produce stuff, the more you get stuff out. Even with this video, like, I'm not saying everything I could be saying in the right order, as speedily as I could be saying, as quickly as I could be saying it. I'm not, this isn't the perfect video about how perfectionism is missing the point, because that is the point, right? I could spend the next year making this video absolutely just every single word is, but I have higher priorities, I guess. There are some things that I want to get more perfect, or more close to my ideal. And then there's some things that I can kind of move back a little bit from and allow for some imperfections. And this is one of those things where I can allow for more imperfections. If I'm making an album, then yeah, obviously I want it to be closer to the perfect, but it's still not there. I'm going to release an album called Postmodern Love Songs very soon. And it's not there. It's not perfect. But it is good. It's good enough. It's good enough for me to complete it and then move on. And then when I do eventually make my 5th or 6th album, like my 6th proper album, it'll be way better. And I'll be really glad that I didn't spend the 6 albums worth of time on that one album, because now I can move on and make different stuff. And you'll probably find that once I make my 6th album, people will look back on my first album. They'll be like, wow, he really had it there. Why did he lose it on the 4th album when he had it on the 1st? Meanwhile, in my head, I'm like, well, the 1st album sucks and the 6th album is the best. So the point is, it can be really blocking to get to a point in your art where the flaws seem insurmountable. But if you finished things before, and I hope you have, and if you haven't finished stuff, you got to start finishing stuff. Look back on the stuff you finished and just reflect on how you feel about the things compared to how you felt when you were working on it. Because now you can like look on it with some distance. And people are always going to be looking at your art with some distance. No one's going to know the little intricate failures that went on during the process of if you're filming a short film and one day was a disaster and you're like, this isn't worth it. And then you put it out anyway. I don't think anyone's going to notice that. Or if they do, they'll probably find it to be an important part of the art that was created. So, yeah, that was a good talk by Matt Johnson. And it stuck with me. And now it's going to stick with you, hopefully. Perfection. 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 This was not a perfect video, was it?